Today, in Lana's stories, she speaks to me about the births of all four of her children and how she began to realize that she absolutely could just birth her babies in the comfort of her own home with whomever she wanted present. Lana first speaks to the difficulty of trying to get pregnant with her first baby, but how that created the space for her to get curious about how she was living her life and the things that were within it. We get into speaking about her first baby, where Lana was supported through the standardized model of medical midwifery care in Canada, the quick delivery of her son, her slow hemorrhage, which she suspects was from overdoing it with Evening Primrose oil, her second pregnancy and birth, once again within the medical system, her introduction to freebirth through a pregnant friend of hers that was planning to and had a free birth, hiring a birthkeeper to attend her younger children as she birthed her third baby with her husband present, having her third baby take around 9 minutes to transition into the world, having a miscarriage, which confirmed that a fourth baby was meant to be a part of their family, having a deep spiritual connection with this last baby and knowing very specific details about her and that she was in fact meant for this world, and having this last baby come through in a very fast and furious way, like she had seen in all of her visions during pregnancy. All of Lana's stories are so unique to her and show how confident she was in her body, and that by listening to herself and her babies, she was able, like all women, to just birth in a free, gentle, and safe way. Hello, Lana. Welcome to the Free Birthing in Color movement. I am very excited to have this conversation with you today. We have been trying to get connected so that I can hear your birth stories, and it has come together now. So I'm so grateful that you are here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yay. Excellent. So the first question I would love to ask you is, what is your ancestry and lineage that you're passing on to your children?
Yeah. I am Métis and Irish on my maternal side, and
Mhm.
my dad is kind of a mixture of European ancestry. So he was adopted, and so I'm not very connected with his history or his lineage. Yeah, so like I said, I'm Métis and Irish on my maternal side. My grandfather is Métis. He's from Lac La Biche area of northern Alberta. And that lineage we kind of lost through colonialism, as many Indigenous people speak to their story being lost.
Mhm.
And as like Métis people, a lot of us have left our settlements and are spread out all over the place. And we kind of did the blend in
Mhm.
as colonialism started to squash our traditions and the different things we do in our life. So most of our stories and traditions were lost after my grandfather because my mom
Mhm.
was really able to hide it. So we
Okay.
didn't practice anything. She didn't learn very much. My grandfather's like parents spoke Cree, so that language was lost.
Mm.
And they would like sew and be, they were fur traders and homesteaders. And so I'm kind of the first generation that has like really brought that back into my own family and into my practice of life.
Mm. Wow.
Just as I've like gotten older, different parts of our ancestry really speak to me, and I've been lucky to be exposed to my culture in a lot of different ways in my life. So I've been able to kind of like gravitate and pull in different things. And there's nothing like having children to motivate you to like really like instill these traditions back. They
Mhm.
start to matter, like I think for some people, and I, of course not all, but for some people when you're a single person, and you might not have joined that phase of life of parenthood, it might not matter so much,
Mhm.
but there's something about when you have someone to pass it on to that you're like, what do I want to pass on to? What kind of
Mhm.
traditions do I want to carry in my family?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I've been incorporating a lot of different traditions as I go along, and I'm learning
Mhm.
more from elders often and incorporating those traditions into my life.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to bring mention to one of the traditions that I was so lucky and grateful to have experienced with you last year at a women's gathering in BC, Earth Daughters. And I joined in your drum making workshop, and you taught us how to make this really beautiful, it was deer hide.
Yeah.
a deer hide drum, yeah, and I still have mine. It's in my bedroom, just up on the top, overlooking in the bedroom. And I played it a couple times, and that was just such that whole experience of making that drum in circle with women, having you guide us, and speaking to your tradition as you were doing that was just so beautiful and so powerful. Um, so yeah, I'm so grateful that you're
I
saying that,
love to
like,
hear that.
you're
Yeah,
taking back your tradition, because it was such a profound moment for me. And I'm sure a lot of the other women that were in that space with you, to see this come through you, because it was just so natural and so beautiful. And to share these teachings and these ways that, like you said, colonialism has taken that away from you and the indigenous people. So having that, I feel so special. And like, I got kind of like invited into this little like sacred space of being. And now I have this really
totally.
beautiful talisman that I get to play. And we sang songs to awaken this drum. And yeah, so I just wanted to express that to you, that I see the work that you're doing in and of yourself for passing that on to your children, but you're also passing it on to other people and other women that get to know this and get to feel this beautiful energy of where you've come from and of the people that are in your lineage. So yeah, I just want
Thank
to
you.
say that I really see that, and I'm so grateful
Yeah,
for that and proud of you for doing this.
thanks.
Yeah.
It took me a while to find like my voice when it came to my ancestry, because there is a bit of like imposter syndrome. There's a people that are raised on the res, and
Mm,
that will be like, well, you're not native enough or whatever.
mm,
There's a lot of like internal kind of conflict within the indigenous community about, being native enough, and do you hold, the right to share knowledge. And I've really
mm,
just come to a place in my own heart that speaks to my soul, I guess,
mhm,
that has given me what I feel like the authority to share knowledge, because I am a firm believer that like being a gatekeeper to knowledge serves no one.
mhm,
And sharing our knowledge and inviting people into our stories and into our traditions and like beautiful sacred ways
mhm,
actually like instills our traditions more than being like, well, you're not native enough, or you haven't done this or done that, so therefore you cannot.
mhm.
um, of course, I understand protecting our stories in the sense so they don't get ruined.
Yep.
But I think there is a balance of that can still be shared
Mhm,
so beautifully. And of course, at Earth Daughters, that was just my first time last year at the festival and doing that drum workshop and the awakening after. And that was just such a special thing to do, because it's also
mhm,
very, special in my heart to share space with women and
mhm,
hold space. And that's something I
mhm,
love to do. And so doing it with all you women, and then sharing something special to me, just felt really awesome.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was truly amazing. And I'm really sad that I didn't sign up for it this year.
Yeah.
Um, when
There's
I'm
still
coming
room,
back.
actually. If anyone's listening, come into Earth Daughters. There's still a couple spots. If you
Okay,
want to come
okay.
make a drum with me, yeah, we've opened up another spot on the Thursday night.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah,
excellent. Yeah,
yeah,
because it's just, like I said, such a profound experience, and having those traditions be passed down not only to Indigenous people, but other people that want to respect them and see the beauty in them and bring them back is is
absolutely.
is so
We do it in
beautiful.
so many different cultures, and so I do
Hmm.
believe that in like our Indigenous culture, we can also do it in a beautiful way too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
because I know that like West Africa is where my like far, far back lineage is from, and drums and drum making and all of that is really powerful medicine that they use. And I think that's why, because I had this song come through as I was making my drum, and it was just like, oh, my ancestors are talking to me right now. I may not be making a drum with the animal hide of the country that I was from, but still, like the energetic resonance of doing that was just so powerful. So yeah, it was just
yeah.
like a
Oh, that
whole
gave me
portal.
goosebumps. They must
Yeah.
have, There's something about when you start hitting that drum, like the
Hmm.
ancestors' voices come through, and you can just like feel them, like
Hmm.
releasing something or giving something, but
Yeah.
it comes through the way you need it to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for letting me just speak to that. I just felt it had to come through because it's, yeah, really important and powerful.
I love it.
But speaking to why we're here is for your
Yeah,
birth stories. So
yeah.
I would love to ask you, where is it that your motherhood journey begins?
Yeah. So my oldest is turning 8 this year.
Mm,
So in the very physical sense of motherhood, it
mm,
started 7 years ago,
mm,
or 8 or whatever if you start from conception. Um, Motherhood has always been a big part of who I am. You know how people are like, you look at little girls and you're like, oh, she's just a mom.
mhm.
I was kind of like one of those girls. She's
Okay.
just a mom.
Yeah.
I did lots of mom things, and I've always kind of worked in the field of momming,
Mhm.
caring for kids and caring for families and caring for women in different capacities. And my like mom journey kind of started out a little bit rough. We had a hard time getting pregnant with our first, and it took us a couple years and we didn't really know what was going on and kind of got the like, "Oh, I don't know,"
Mm.
kind of from the mainstream system.
Mhm.
But all of that kind of led me to where I am today in a lot of ways because when you're not getting pregnant, you start to wonder, why am I not getting pregnant? And so
Mhm.
started going down the like, oh, well, like maybe it's the food I'm eating or maybe it's the cleaners I'm using in my house. And once you start down that like kind of natural rabbit hole,
Mhm.
that kind of leads you
Mhm.
down so many more, and so that kind of guided me into my motherhood and the way my journey and my births unfolded. That's kind of how
Okay.
everything kind of flowed towards things. You learn more as your journey goes on, and I wasn't exposed to a lot of things
Mhm.
in the world that I am now currently exposed to.
Mhm.
So a lot of the things I kind of learned on my journey as I went.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
then you and your husband, were you married at the time? Sorry, you did say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you and your
Yeah. Yeah.
husband are trying to get pregnant. It's taking a few years, and then you start going down this rabbit hole. So what is it? Because then would you say that that was kind of like your conscious conception journey as well to kind of change
Hmm.
these things within your body and your life to reach this pregnancy? So what were those things
Yeah.
that you were doing
Fairly,
to
like, fairly mild, like, nothing like what I would tell a mom now.
Mhm.
But it was just like get the pesticides out of your house and like
Yeah.
eat more naturally. I was always a bit naturally minded, I would say, or maybe
Yeah.
fairly naturally minded, but in a world of very naturally minded,
Mhm.
I wouldn't consider myself very naturally minded in that group, but
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the greater ether of the Canadian society,
Mm.
I would say I was naturally minded.
Okay. Yeah.
So the things I were doing were not overly intense. It was just kind of like adjusting my lifestyle and,
Yeah.
getting things out of the house and in my body, but, a few herbs here and there.
Mm.
It was a really hard time on my life. I was extremely depressed because I really wanted to be a mom.
Mhm.
And so that was a really upsetting time for me. And honestly, the women going through infertility is just there's there's nothing that really makes you feel better. Like
Mm.
counseling isn't really going to make you feel better, and um, experiencing like loss when you're trying to get pregnant. Like it's just
Mhm.
that whole process is just so painful. And it just all goes away when you get pregnant. So I just miraculously got pregnant.
Mhm.
And I say that, with a grain of salt because it wasn't really miraculous. It just happened.
Yeah.
Things fell into place and I got pregnant. And 4 kids later,
Mhm.
I didn't have any issues after that first one.
Okay.
But then, yeah, we had my first boy.
Okay. So
Yeah.
do you want to walk me through that
Yeah.
pregnancy journey and like what did you do when you first found out? What were,
Yeah.
yeah, tell
So I
me.
was pretty like just normal things. So I was not doing well with getting pregnant. So I was working with a fertility doctor,
Mhm.
and she was just like, yeah, if you get pregnant, you can like, I'll birth with you, whatever. I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Get pregnant. I meet with her. I'm like, yeah, so I'm pregnant. And she's like, okay, yeah, I can be your doctor. I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay. And I had like my first like OB appointment, and she was just like, it was a really short appointment, and I asked like a few questions,
Mm.
and like no like I've been working with families and moms and things for many years. So like I am a experienced person when it came to like birth. I didn't have like I had a good foundational knowledge.
Mhm.
And I went like left the appointment. I was like, man, like she didn't answer anything. And in the end, she might not even be the one at the doctor or at the birth. She wouldn't birth in the hospital because like I didn't know these things about the system. I didn't know doctors in Canada don't do home births. I don't
Okay.
know, wild thing, Canada. But anyways,
Mhm.
So I was like kind of disappointed about that. I was like, I did kind of want to have a home birth. I didn't know anybody who had a home birth or anyone who did that kind of stuff, but I wanted it kind of on the table.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I left kind of pissed with this doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I had had a previous experience with her where I was like crying because I was like pretty devastated about not getting pregnant, and her telling me, well, I don't know why. And so, and she was just completely void of empathy. She just kind of sat there
Mm-hmm.
and just waited for me to finish crying. And it was the most awkward thing because I was like kind of hysterical, embarrassingly crying.
Yeah.
And she just sat there, and she's a fertility doctor. It's not like she doesn't deal with women being upset.
Yeah,
And I was just
totally.
shocked that she couldn't be like, I'm so really sorry, or like doing
Yeah.
anything to even her
Something to
physical
comfort.
body. Yeah, not even
Yeah.
anything with her physical body to like show me some love.
Mm-hmm.
And so that experience had kind of like turned me off for a little bit. So, anyways, I called up the midwives, got in right away. Their first appointment was like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so much better. I was like, in an old house,
Okay.
and they were really sweet. And that was like when kind of from there, just like a typical Canadian medical midwife pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
I was healthy and well, and I was working. I'm like a social worker, and I've been doing like family counseling for many, many years. So that's what I was working in at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like did my normal job and went on mat leave a few weeks before baby came, and I had the baby at my house.
Mm-hmm.
I lived like half an hour from the hospital then. And yeah, I had the baby at home, and it was like a pretty standard birth in a lot of ways. Um, like I went into labor at like we'd go for walks every evening, and I like went into labor at like 6, and he was born by 3:30.
Wow.
Yeah, so like pretty
Okay.
quick for a first time birth.
Mm-hmm.
My water broke at like 11:30,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, he was born like pretty quick. Like the pushing was only like, I don't know, half an hour long.
Mm-hmm.
And what, during my pregnancy, I had a few people give me some like good just nuggets of like things to help me through birth. I did like hypnobirthing because like someone told me about that, and
Mm-hmm.
that was like a perfect at the time, like the perfect thing for me just to like get in. My hypnobirthing isn't for everyone and doesn't necessarily help you in birth, but the course itself really talks about like trusting your body and like changing the
Mm.
language and like surrendering and a lot of the things that really can help you in birth.
Okay.
And I read like some of Ina May's books.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I didn't know anybody who had done this, so I didn't have like anyone personally to relate to.
Right. Okay.
And I wasn't really in the social media ether either, so I didn't have anyone out in that world
Mm-hmm.
to, tell me anything. So yeah, I had him at home. I had a lot of like the standard medical midwife things. Like I had like one cervical check. She
Mm-hmm.
showed up, she got to my house at probably, I think 2 in the
Oh,
morning,
okay.
and he was
Wow.
born at 1:30. So she really wasn't even there for very long
Uh-huh.
before the baby was born. Um,
So then it was just you and your husband, or did you have somebody else with you, or just the two of you basically
it
the whole
was my
time?
husband and me and my mom. I called my mom in
Okay.
the evening, and she came out,
Okay.
and she was just like, I'd like coached her really hard. She had 3 C-sections, so she like hadn't
Okay.
even really done the vaginal birth. And
Mm.
so I like was like, we're not using this language, and this is what you're doing, and this is your job. And my mom's like fantastic when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
like she was a principal and a teacher. Like she takes
Okay.
direction like very
Mm-hmm.
well,
Mm-hmm.
handles it super well. And so she was nervous,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd like really prepped her for like what her responsibilities were and like what I wanted her to do
Yeah.
and like how I wanted her to behave.
Perfect. That's how it should be, though, so that they
And she was
know.
great. She was awesome.
Yeah.
She just like did, and I'm like, I need you to take pictures, and I want you to like have hot towels for me, and
Mm-hmm.
like that is your job.
I love that.
Make
I
sure
love
I have
that.
water. So it's just the three of us, and then I like when I first went into labor, I just like sent everybody to bed. It was just like because I knew I had read like birth
Mm-hmm.
can be long, like just rest for as long as possible. So I sent everyone to bed, and I went to bed. And then when things got like really ramped up at like 11:30 when my water broke, then we were kind of up just like hanging out. But my mom
Mm-hmm.
even was just like lingering. I don't even really remember her.
Mm-hmm.
Once I was like really in it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
really remember. I know she was there and she was hovering around, but she
Yeah.
was just keeping her distance.
Nice. Oh, that's
So
great.
I did have a like a postpartum hemorrhage that was a slow hemorrhage
Okay.
after him.
What's a
And so
slow hemorrhage? Can you explain that?
like I
'Cause I
wasn't I was gushing, but I wasn't consistently gushing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sorry for yeah,
No,
so it was
that's
just like I would have like a big bleed and then it would it'd be there'd be a break and then I'd have a like another big bleed. And then I tried to get up to go to the bathroom to try it because I couldn't pee and sometimes if you can pee that can help clamp the uterus.
mm,
And I passed out. And so I had to be like carried back to bed.
mm-hmm.
And at this point it had been like 3 hours
Okay.
and I wasn't really getting better.
Mm-hmm.
So then we decided to go to the hospital and it was like a mutual thing. I had had time with the baby. We had nursed. The placenta was born like an hour later. It was great. It was really
Mm-hmm.
honestly a really good birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some different things now that I wouldn't have done,
Mm-hmm.
but at the time it was fine.
Yeah.
I was so happy to have a baby after trying for 2 years
Yeah.
that I felt great and nothing that was done was super invasive.
Mm-hmm.
They did do fundal massage after we were, not able to get the bleeding to stop to try and help, but I had actually taken a ton of Evening Primrose and I had a lot of fear around tearing.
Okay.
And there is studies that link Evening Primrose to postpartum hemorrhage. And so I do
Um,
wonder if I had overdone it because it
yeah.
relaxes, it tones it. So I do wonder if I had taken too much. I had taken it orally and as a suppository vaginally, and so
Okay.
maybe I'd overdone it.
Okay. That's good
Yeah.
to know. I didn't realize that it could cause
Mm.
hemorrhage.
So
So
take caution, women.
yeah.
Don't overdo it with the Evening Primrose.
Right. Wow. Okay.
So so jumping forward, I had my second kid two years later,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
I had midwives again, just kind of like it went fine the first time, so just like I didn't really put too much mental input into it. I just was like, I'm just gonna do it just like last time.
Mm-hmm.
I had the same kind of midwife, not the exact same midwife because she had moved away, but the same agency.
Okay.
And they had some like nerves about me bleeding again,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
like kind of the standard story with midwives.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also, she was born in December, and I live 30 minutes on like a pretty windy, twisty back road
Mm-hmm.
at the time. And so I kind of compromised with them and said, okay, well, like if you guys are nervous and this is like, why don't I just have the baby at my mom's house? She lives, 2 minutes from the hospital in town.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew my mom would be fine with it. And at this point, I had a second kid that I would, want to do something with, and he was two. Two-year
Mm-hmm.
olds aren't the most fun in the birth space. They can be quite challenging because they're still so
Mm-hmm.
emotionally attached to their moms.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was going to have to do something with him anyways. So we planned for him to drive into town when it felt right, and then he would just like go to his other grandparents' house, and I would just have the baby at my mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I went into labor at like 8 o'clock at night, and then
Oh, wait,
he
sorry.
was go
So
ahead.
can I just go back again?
Mhm.
So this second time around, because you said you just went back to the same agency, did you have like any what's the word? Like questions or like anything that you wanted to change from that first birthing experience to the second one? Like for example, the Evening Primrose, did you find that out after that first birth, or was this many like
I
later
found
later?
I found out about the Evening Primrose after I had her.
Okay.
And I didn't really have any, and I just kind of thought it was a fluke thing, to be honest.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I personally didn't put much blame in my body about the hemorrhage.
Yeah.
I just figured it was just like a
It
fluke
just
thing,
happened.
and like
Yeah.
maybe it could happen again, but maybe not. I didn't
Yeah.
really read further into bleeding
Fair.
because
Yeah.
my biggest fear actually was tearing.
Yeah.
And I didn't tear at all in my first birth. And so I was like,
Hmm.
well, that fear's gone out the door. So I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
And I really just thought the bleeding thing was just a random thing. I
Yeah.
wasn't concerned about it. And so when I went back to the midwives, most of my appointments are fairly pointless
Okay.
because like we
Okay.
didn't really have much to talk about. I wasn't worried. I didn't really have any great fears.
Yeah.
Um, and the biggest thing is in the time of my first being born and being pregnant, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, and so I was labeled somewhat high risk. So I had to consult with a OB who advised against a home birth.
Okay.
But I was able to sign a form saying that I wasn't willing to listen to that doctor.
Yeah.
And I was still able to have the home birth, and the midwives were still okay to respect that.
Okay. Okay.
So that was nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went into labor that night at like 8 at night, and she was born at 6:30. Just another fairly typical labor. Like I labored at home, and then I think
Wow.
around 1:30 or 2 we drove into town.
Mm.
I sent everyone to bed. Around 4:30 I was like getting a little bit like thinking things were getting more serious. At
Mm-hmm.
like I think 5 between 5 and 5:30 I was like, I think we should call the midwife now, and I think she got there at like 5:45 and she was born at 6:30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and not very much time for interventions,
Yeah.
when your baby comes so quick after they arrive.
Mm-hmm.
And I called her earlier on in the evening and just said, like, things are definitely happening. The baby's going to come. I'm like, how far away are you? And she's like, I can be there in 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'll just call you when we're like really close.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. And
Yes.
then the placenta, how was that? Was that another quick delivery? Yep.
Yeah. So the placenta again was like born, I don't know, 45 minutes later. Like I had time to sit with my baby. Like it felt like a good
Mm-hmm.
amount of time because actually
Mm-hmm.
with both births, I remember looking up at the midwife and saying like, should I birth the placenta now? And then being like, no, like you're fine. Like you can just nurse with the baby a bit. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's fine.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, it was really like I said, I had like fairly positive births. I did have a cervical check in both. I did have like fetal monitoring in both,
Mm-hmm.
like periodically. Um, but other than that, not really. And I got Pitocin in my first birth,
Okay. Yeah.
and because that's like their standard protocol in Canada, you just like get one at emergence,
Mm-hmm.
unless you say no, but that's
Mm-hmm.
their standard protocol.
Yeah.
And my second one, they wanted me to wear a tap in my hand in case
Oh,
I bled, so they could tap me into the saline so right away,
right. Okay.
which was super annoying, and I actually hated that. And
Mm-hmm.
they really pushed it, and I was like, fine. And it was super uncomfortable. But she wasn't I didn't actually wear it for very long because she wasn't at my birth for very long.
Oh, yeah. True.
So,
Okay.
and once, an hour passed after the baby was born, then we could just take it out,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
But these were kind of like the compromises I made at the time. And,
Mm-hmm.
if I knew everything I knew now,
Mm-hmm.
there might be some like anger or resentment around these things. But I didn't know what I know now.
Exactly.
And at the
Yeah.
time, it felt perfectly fine to make those compromises.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
didn't, they overly didn't interfere with anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, they'd interfere with my brain because I'd be like, what the heck? This is stupid and
Yeah.
pointless. But the time I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is a compromise and we'll just do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
So in the moments of birth, it wasn't bad for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like from what you say, it sounds like they were pretty of the scale of birth stories that I've heard at home with medical midwives. Like those are very good stories. Those are stories
Yeah.
that are like not dramatic. Those are stories where mother and baby seem to be kept together. The placenta comes out in its own time. There's not so much like energetic mismatch or anything like that. So it's like, yeah, I could totally see how if these are, your first baby, second baby, and like that was your experience, it's like, oh my God, those are great. Like
Yeah, they
you're
were
very
great.
you come
I
away
think
from them very happy and yeah.
I think if you have a very straightforward birth, you can have like a medicalized midwife there and it not be like not every medicalized midwife birth story is going to be filled with trauma. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
when things go out because birth there's so many outlying variabilities
Yeah.
and when the system is meant to kind of follow a singular path,
Mm-hmm.
when it gets to those variabilities, they just don't handle them well. And then
Yeah.
things just, the spiral happens and it
Mm-hmm.
spirals everything and we're not machines.
Yeah. And also for you, like
So,
you said, for the second birth, the medical midwife showed up about 45 minutes before baby was born. So that's also just like a really beautiful blessing that
Yeah.
that happened. Like she didn't really have enough time to kind of implement anything because she gets there, she kind of sets up, checks on you, and then it's like, oh,
And
your
now it's go
baby's
time.
yeah,
Now
your
I'm
baby's
pushing out a
here.
baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
When usually they're there
Totally.
for like a good 12 hours or something. So they kind of get bored or they're checking their watch or they're ticking their boxes. And then that's where, yeah, if they're there
Yes.
too long, I feel like that also just creates the space for more interference because then they're kind of like, oh, well,
Been this long. Or like they can get in
yeah,
their own fears really easily, and
totally. Yeah.
yeah. So I was really lucky. And I just had like fairly straightforward births. Like yes, they were
Mm-hmm.
hard and yes, they were, life changing and all the things, but
Mm-hmm.
overall they were like good births.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll fast forward to the next birth. So my third, so my second and third are 2 years and 9 months apart. So it's a slightly larger gap than my first two.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, COVID happened.
Okay.
and and in that time, my housemate had her first baby and she free birthed her.
Okay.
And that was kind of my first exposure to this. And I remember kind of being like kind of skeptical about it at first when she was first pregnant, talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, COVID started to happen. Things were shutting down. In that time, she wasn't my housemate at the time, but we were looking to buy together. And in the time of me being pregnant with my third, we moved to where I live now in rural BC.
Okay.
And um, I learned more about free birthing. And like I said, we're in the thick of COVID. You're not allowed to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was first pregnant with him, and I was so fat right away. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am having twins. I'm having twins. And I hadn't even gone to like my first like appointment with the midwives, or I hadn't really done anything, but I'd used that same agency because I hadn't moved yet.
Okay.
And so I just called them up and said, like, we haven't had an appointment, but I think I might have twins. I wasn't going to have any ultrasounds, but I think I would like to have one. I need to know if I'm having two babies.
Mm-hmm.
I need to plan for that.
Yeah.
And so I went and got my first ultrasound, not two babies. It's just third time around, things are loose and you get fat real fast. And so I had my big belly right away and I moved. I think I moved, I was about 5 months pregnant
Okay.
and I just didn't follow up with going to any midwife appointments because like I couldn't bring my other children with me.
Right. Yeah.
And it just seems so difficult to like
Mm-hmm.
even have an appointment. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, I just don't want to do this. I just don't want to deal with this. And so I moved. And then when I moved out here where I am now, the closest midwife is an hour and a half away. And the next
Oh,
birthing hospital is an hour and a half, 2 hours away.
okay. Yeah.
And well, like now I have two kids and I'm pregnant. I'm like, why do I need to go to a midwife? I like really don't need anything. I don't have any questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was just had to like get over the hang up of like, do I need a midwife at the birth at all?
Right. Yeah.
And so I kind of percolated around that. My housemate, like, exposed me to like the Free Birth Society. So I like, listened to their stuff and read their stuff. And then, and in this time, I actually took a bunch of doula courses
Okay.
with a wonderful elder here from BC, Gloria LeMay. And so I'd learned tons from her as well. So I was like feeling quite confident around birth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went along with this pregnancy, just like totally wild, other than this one ultrasound that I got. And we're like living on this like 80-acre like parcel. And he was born in August. So like just
Mm.
full bloom in the summer. I was so fat and glorious. And it was awesome. And yeah, I ended up inviting another like birth keeper to come help because I had two other kids.
Yeah.
And I really wanted my other kids to be at the birth, because my oldest now was 4
Mm-hmm.
and my other one was like on the upper of 2, like getting close to 3, and my
Mm-hmm.
4-year-old was almost 5.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted them to be at the birth, and I knew it'd be like too much just to have like my one housemate come and help. you
Yeah.
know, because I wanted help. I wanted to have a water birth. I hadn't had a water birth yet, and I was super like pumped about trying to do a water birth. And I was like, someone's got to be filling the pool, and someone's got to be watching the children. And
Hmm.
I know I want when I'm in like transition and pushing, I like to just have my husband sit beside me. I really don't like him to leave. I just need him to just sit beside me. He doesn't have to do anything. Just
Yeah.
I need him close.
Hmm.
And so I really wanted to have a specific person to watch my children and a
Yeah.
specific person to do the pool and just help with any outlying things so that my husband
Yeah.
could just be with me.
Hmm.
So we invited a birth keeper to come join us, and she was at my housemate's birth. So we got to know each other over the time. And she actually just came with like her camper van and like camped in my yard until the baby was born.
Mm.
And one thing that I have is a ton of prodromal labor. So
Okay.
weeks and weeks of false labor. My first child was born at 38 and a bit weeks. My second was born at 37 a bit weeks.
Hmm.
So after two, you kind of think I have early babies. My babies come
Yeah.
early. And I still have so much prodromal labor. So like 35 weeks, it's like really ramping up every day.
Okay.
Every
Yeah.
day, like hours of contractions, 4 minutes apart.
Mm.
And so I'm like, yeah, you should probably like come hang out. So she came and like camped in our yard, but he didn't come till 39 weeks, which
Wow.
was shocking with your third. You're like, they're gonna probably be like, shorter or
Hmm.
around the other ones. So that was like wild. And like, so like with him, like I had the same amount. Like I had more weeks of prodromal labor because like it started around the same time, but I
Yeah.
was still pregnant at 39 weeks. So I had been like what felt like in and out of labor land for like 4 weeks. So I
Wow.
was quite tired by the time he came.
Hmm.
But yeah, he
Totally.
came almost exactly the same as my second. So I like went into labor in the evening. Um, it kind of stopped for like an hour or two and then it picked up again and I like labored all night long and he was also born at like 6:30 in the morning in
Mm.
the birth pool. He like I got in the birth pool at like 6, like almost not we almost didn't have enough time because it just kind of like I
Mm.
like to just labor by myself until we're like in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And once we're in the thick of it, we were like really in the thick of it. And yeah, we got the pool filled. I got in at 6 and my contractions were my first two babies, like the pushing phase was just like one contraction almost.
Okay.
Like they
Yeah.
did stop and start, but they was like it was like catch your breath, catch your breath, catch your breath, and
Okay.
now we're pushing again for like 30 minutes straight. But for my son, and this is totally his personality, I started I got in the pool and the contractions were like far apart and I could like
Mm.
talk. My older children woke up from bed
Mm.
because it was like
Hmm.
6 normal wake up time.
Yeah.
And they came in and they like gave me kisses and hugs and
Oh.
they were just like lingering around and they're being so cute and so sweet. And my contractions were kind of far apart and I was like totally able to like talk in between. I wasn't like panting out of breath by any means. It was just kind of like
Hmm.
I'd have a big one and we would like push for, the minute and then I would just
Hmm.
like wait for the
Mm.
next one. And then I had like a big contraction and his head came out
Oh,
and then I
wow.
had like a long gap again and had to like move around and do some things. And then his body came out, like flying out, and we gathered him up. And it does feel
Wow.
good to birth in a birth pool. It does feel really
Yeah.
nice. And gathered him up, and he was really slow to come into his body. It took him a long time to like really take a breath, like
Hmm.
almost 10 minents.
Oh,
And so
wow.
he was like
Okay.
quite like kind of flopping around. And I was like, I never felt really scared, but I
Hmm.
just was like just working with him, just like giving him some love and patting him. And there was one point just before he like kind of let out a big cry close to the 9 minute mark. I
Yeah.
just know this from we had like a video. So I was like, oh,
Okay.
9 minutes, there's the cry. I
Okay.
wasn't
Yeah.
actually timing it at the time, but because of the video, I was able to see.
Yeah.
And he finally took his big breath. But just before that, I started to get a little bit worried. My husband actually probably triggered it. He stood up
Hmm.
and the protector puts his hands on his hips
Hmm.
and he's like, is everything okay? Is everything okay? And like at that
Yeah.
point my umbilical cord was not very long and I was trying to kind of tip him over to help
Yeah.
drain him out. And so my housemate like helped
Yeah.
me, and then he like coughed out whatever was left in there, and then
Okay.
he was not floppy anymore and was breathing. But he was a
Okay.
sleepy baby from that moment on. My other kids were fiery.
Yeah.
Had we burned the cord that time. It was a very peaceful, like just
Oh.
like yeah, it was right quite lovely.
Yeah.
And we like tucked into bed and yeah, it was really nice. And
Mm.
that was like my first like free birth experience, I guess,
Yeah. Can I just
while
ask
pregnancy.
quickly because of the you said it took your son about 9 minutes to like fully come into his body, which can be normal for babies that are born in just really, gentle emergent emergences when they're coming through. Was because you said like you were very kind of like confident and you were just doing things to help him come through. Did it feel like anybody else in the room was kind of like nervous, or did everyone just sit and, just watch and let you do your motherly instinct to watch this
Yeah.
baby and
Nobody
hold
did
this baby?
anything. Everyone just sat there. Well, like
Mm.
when the baby first came out, we were all just like, "Yay, the baby's here!" And like we were all
Mhm.
celebrating, and my like kids were super excited, and they wanted to jump in the pool, and
Mm.
my boy wanted to catch the baby, but it kind of
Oh,
he had left the room, and then the head came out, and then he walked into the room, and the baby came out, so he
okay.
couldn't like be in the
Yeah.
pool. He wanted to be in the pool to catch the baby.
Yeah.
So he was like, Mom, I wanted to catch the baby." And I had to be
Oh.
like, "I'm sorry." Like, look, the baby's here though. Like, it's here.
Yeah.
And we didn't know if it was a boy or girl. I knew it was a boy. I
Mhm.
was certain he was a boy.
Mhm.
But we got to confirm that he was a boy. And yeah, everyone just like sat in just like the aura of,
Mhm.
the room energy of when a baby born is just
Mhm.
such a beautiful thing, and we just were all just sitting in it. And yeah, everybody just sat tight until I
Yeah.
looked up when my husband got a little bit worried, and I like was clearly looking for a little bit
Mhm.
of support in that moment and was
Right.
given that support, and then we were able just to tap in, and we were fine
Perfect.
from
Oh,
that
I
moment
love
on.
that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
beautiful. And I just wanted to ask that question because I know that there are people that think like babies have to come out screaming and wailing and crying, or if they don't make a noise within a minute or two, it's like something bad has happened. But really, it's just if the mother is tapped into her child and has that really deep connection with the baby and she's there observing and seeing what's going on, then like you really can just feel that into that intuition and know even if it is 9 minutes, like that's a quote unquote long time. And like if you had a medical midwife there, that situation would have been totally different. But you trusted
totally.
yourself, and that's what I love hearing. Is like you as a woman, as this child's mother, you totally trusted this baby, let them come through in the time that they needed to come through. And all was well.
All
And
was
like,
well. It was just like this
yeah,
unique experience. Like I just knew he
yeah,
was fine. I knew
yeah.
he was still attached to the placenta. I knew he was still getting everything he needed. He
Mhm,
wasn't like I think I would have been a little bit more like feeling like I needed to do more
mhm.
if he was like completely white and floppy.
Yeah.
He was blue and
Mhm,
he was kind of floppy, but he had in those minutes he had kind of like would have this kind of jolt of
mhm,
bodily function, and then you'd be like, oh,
mhm.
okay, and then he'd kind of flop again, and you'd be like,
Yeah,
oh God, are you breathing? But in the moment, like I wasn't freaked out about it. I just assumed it was just taking his time for his body to flip over. That
yeah,
fetal circulation. It's a completely different thing that like switches
yeah.
over like this, and sometimes I think it just takes a bit of time.
Mhm,
So,
totally. Yeah. Oh,
and I
I
just
love
felt in
that.
my core that he was fine,
Mhm.
and he's
Yeah.
always been fine. He's just this big. So I was really, really quite large in my third pregnancy. I was not very large in my first two. In my third, I
Mm.
was quite large. And he's just kind of like this boy that like he's thick and strong and sturdy, and that's just how he's always been, and he moves in his own way. Everything he does is in his own speed.
Aw,
He
yeah,
came to this earth in his own speed. He took his breath in his own speed. He walked a little
yeah.
bit later than my other kids. He started talking a bit later, but when he does it, he's committed, and it's
Okay.
like it happens, and that is his
Yeah.
like whole soul. So it's
Aw,
cool to see the birth is also
yeah.
speaks to his spirit.
Oh, I love that so
Cool.
much.
Yeah.
Aw, and
Um,
sorry, you said you burnt his cord from the placenta, and did you do anything special with the placenta afterward?
I froze it.
Okay.
And then I buried it in
Okay.
the forest when it
Nice.
felt right for me.
Mm,
I never had any desire to like eat my placenta or anything. I don't even know how I feel about that on a personal level,
mm,
but I just always felt called just to return it to the earth
mhm.
at some point. And just like one random day, I woke up and was like, today is the day.
Yeah.
And I took that placenta out and I went hiked into the forest with my kids.
Mhm.
And My husband's like not into any of that stuff. He's like, when he sees the placenta in the freezer, he's like, "Is the placenta still in the freezer?" Like,
Aw.
anyways, so me and the kids hiked up into the forest and buried the
Oh,
placenta,
oh, I love that.
and then yeah, so yeah, I have four, so I have one more.
Hmm.
So fast forward again. Oh, by the way, we always thought we were gonna have two kids, so this is
Okay.
fun. Yeah.
Okay.
And here we are at four. Anyways, before I ever had kids, I was told I was going to have four kids.
Oh,
And
really?
I laughed and said, "No, you
Mm,
have me mixed up.
mm,
I am only going to have two.
mm.
I see the way the world is, and I won't have one because I don't want one weird kid. So I will have
Aw.
two." Jokes out there if you have one kid, like,
Mm,
you know. But my own personal thing was like, they got to have siblings, so we'll
yeah,
have two.
yeah.
Anyways, so we decided to have our third because I just felt this spirit calling. I was like, I have another kid out there. I just know I do. And I kept being like, I don't know. And then my husband and I decided, like, okay, let's just have another one. We'll just
Hmm.
have another one. So we had our third.
Hmm.
And so that was going to be it.
Hmm.
That was going to be it. And then a year passes and I get pregnant. And it was kind of a shock because I was never able to get pregnant when I've been breastfeeding. I've always had to stop breastfeeding to get pregnant.
Okay.
And so I was like really shocked that I got pregnant. And I'd only had one like postpartum period, my first period at, a year. And I got pregnant that cycle.
Wow.
And I was really shocked and I didn't expect to be pregnant. And I just thought that it was like this funny sign. Like what?
Mm,
And yeah, I've always had this other spirit
mm,
child.
mm,
And of course, now that we are here where we are now, I can see so clearly the messages. But I
hmm.
had gotten these messages. And it felt very strange because, like I said, we only thought we were going to have two and then we had three. Whoa, whoa, now we're at three. Whoa. And then, oh my gosh, now I'm pregnant for the fourth time.
Hmm.
So I got pregnant. It was the fall and I ended up having a miscarriage. And that kind of solidified it for my husband and I that we're going to have another baby. And so we
Okay.
decided, okay, let's have a fourth. And so we got pregnant. And so here I am pregnant with my fourth. Also, I get very sick. So
Okay.
people
Yeah.
think I'm insane that I've had four kids because I have thrown up so much.
Hmm.
I just get so sick. And I have tried everything. I don't think there's a thing out there I haven't tried.
Okay.
And well, nothing helps. And I'm just very sick. And it's very tough when you have three other kids. So that was a very tough time for me.
Wow. Is it the whole pregnancy or just until a certain date that you're
Just
sick?
about 20 weeks.
Okay.
So a good half.
Yeah.
And it's rough.
Hmm.
And so I'm getting through this pregnancy and I got so many beautiful visions with this little girl that I have.
Mm.
She I knew her name.
Mm.
And I was like, and I knew she was a girl. And I knew like when I had the miscarriage in the fall that there was a girl that was waiting to join
Hmm.
our family.
Hmm.
And like I said, I knew her name and I knew her name actually when I was pregnant with my first daughter. So I have
Oh,
two boys
wow.
and two girls. Boy,
Wow.
girl, boy, girl.
Yeah.
But I knew my second daughter was not to be named that name.
Okay. Wow.
So I had this name, but it was just that was not the name for my first daughter.
Hmm.
And so during this whole pregnancy, I was a little bit, too confident. I was like, I have a daughter and her name is going to be Eve. And I like told my husband that's going to be her name
Hmm.
and that it's a girl and I'm certain it's a girl. And
Yeah.
I told many people, I was like, it's a girl, it's a girl. And so throughout my pregnancy, so now had three births. I've had a water birth. I've had like a lot of beautiful birthing experiences. And
Hmm.
I wanted to, do maybe something cool, but I kept getting these like little visions about what was going to happen. And so anyways, during this pregnancy, this one was a completely wild pregnancy because
Mm.
I getting fat right away wasn't a concern. That's just what happens when you have lots of kids. And I'd pretty much done all the things at this point. So no concerns. I actually went back to work, which was like kind of a unexpected thing. So I was like really busy, three kids working, my husband's working. But in the time of my pregnancy, I ended up putting up a huge teepee, this 20-foot
Okay.
teepee on my property. And it was like always been my life's dream to have a teepee. I just like always thought I need a teepee.
Hmm.
And so I have this beautiful teepee in my yard. And I just had these visions that, oh, how beautiful would it be to have a fire and have a baby in a teepee? Just like my
Wow.
ancestors. That would be so
Yeah.
incredible, right? We put up this teepee and it was so much work because I got like the biggest teepee ever. We had to like bring in machinery to bring it up. Very traditional. Very
Wow.
traditional, using the bulldozer to lift the poles. After we tried with people and we were just not having success.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, we get the teepee up and we get all the things like not set up for birth, but you know, we have it set up nice in there and we've like spent some time. My fourth baby's born was expected in October.
Okay.
And so I was like, the weather should be hopefully okay. Like she was due like 40 weeks would be like the end of October, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, my last pregnancy went to 39 weeks, but that's probably hilarious. I'll probably never be pregnant that long again. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like expecting mid-October probably, like Thanksgiving, I'm probably going to see this baby.
Mm-hmm.
And Thanksgiving, the weather can still be pretty good. So we set up this teepee, and not long after we set it up, we've like had some barbecues in it and stuff like that. And we go in, and there was a pack rat in there
Mm.
pooping in my teepee.
Oh
Well,
no.
this gave me a ick, an
Mm-hmm.
ick for the teepee. Even though I had dreams of drumming in my teepee and then having a baby.
Yeah.
But the whole time I was pregnant with her, I was like, this baby is going to fall out of me. I just had this weird feeling like my labor was going to be so fast. And so when I went on maternity leave, my prodromal labor, actually, I went on maternity leave because my prodromal labor had started. And I was like,
Uh,
I feel like I'm going to have this baby any day.
yeah.
I can't be at work. Like, I haven't done anything. I haven't even got diapers yet. This is what happens when you have four babies. You just don't do anything because you're like, I already
Mm-hmm.
have clothes, I already have everything.
Yeah.
But now I have done nothing.
Yeah.
Other than like I worked really hard to nourish my body like
Mm.
nutritionally.
Mm-hmm.
I had done nothing else. Like, you know, the things that, you know, first time moms are like, I got my pretty nursery in my bed. I'm like, I did nothing. I hadn't done anything. So I
Yeah.
like, I'm getting so much prodromal labor. I better get off work because I need to like actually like I don't even have like, I don't know, some extra towels. And so but I kept having these visions about her coming really fast. And a few months prior, I'd had this vision of me like going into labor. I have this really long 1 kilometer bumpy driveway. And I
Mm.
had these dreams that I was like going to come up this driveway and had this baby literally on the driveway because it came so fast.
Oh wow.
And then a few weeks later, after I'd gone on leave, maybe even a week into
Mm.
it, I had another really vivid like vision of having her in the kitchen.
Mm.
And I like woke up and I told my husband about this dream. I was like, I had this dream and you know, you were talking to me in the kitchen and I was like, I'm having the baby. I'm having the baby. And you were like playing with your phone and I was saying, get your phone. I want to take a video. Get your phone. And then you just put it down and then the baby was born. And then me yelling at you because I wanted to get a video of it. And I told him about this dream, which is really funny. But anyways, I was like, I don't know. And he kept asking me like, do you want to have the baby in the teepee? Do you want to have a water birth? And I kept being like, I don't know. I don't know. I just like couldn't make up my mind about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't like make a decision on it, but I also was doing like nothing to proactively be ready for that.
Yeah.
You know, I have a birth pool, so I just would have had to pull it out, but I didn't even pull it out. It was like in the closet. I didn't have a hose. Like, I hadn't done anything. But I just like couldn't make a decision on it. And I just kept having this weird feeling I'm just gonna have this super fast labor.
Mm.
And my other ones were like pretty fast, but like not like wildly. Weren't precipitous.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, weeks are passing. 37 weeks comes, and my mucus plug comes out. And because I love women things, and like, what's better than practicing on anybody but yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like checking my cervix because I'm like, oh, where is it at today? Like, so once in a while, I would check my cervix just for fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, after I lost my mucus plug, I was like, I wonder where I'm at. I was like, oh, I'm about like 3 centimeters. So like, I'll probably have a baby in about a week. You
Okay.
know, like not getting overly excited about it, but like, yeah, probably about a week. You know, lots of times, like if you lose your mucus plug, it's about a week that it happens, like sometimes within a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it means like things are happening. And it was Thanksgiving weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and my family lives a couple hours away, like parents and stuff. And I wanted to go home and see everybody. So I was like, well, whatever, like I can just have the baby anywhere at this point. I don't really care.
Yeah.
So I just brought like an extra box with like a few extra things and like went to Penticton, which is where our family is. And I thought, well, maybe I'll have this baby this weekend. And you know,
Mm.
my mom lives there. That's where my mom lives. And I just gave her a heads up, like just keep your phone on at night because we might need an extra hand.
Yeah.
because again, I wanted to have my kids there. And nothing happened that weekend. Although like there was a few times I thought I was like, prodromal labor still happening.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened, so I came back home and a week passed. And another week passed.
Oh my
I made it to
gosh.
39 weeks and I'm still like,
Wow.
wow, I haven't had this baby. At this point, I've had like practice labor like insanely. So I've had
Mm-hmm.
like even like what felt like full labor
Mm-hmm.
for like hours and hours. Like I'd be up like the entire night feeling
Mm-hmm.
like this is the real deal. And for
Yeah.
me, like prodromal labor turns into labor. There's no difference. It's just at
Mm-hmm.
one point, it just reaches a point that it is not going to stop.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It just kind of goes and goes and goes and then stops, or it goes and goes and goes, and a baby eventually is born. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't like be like, oh, this is just another practice because I'm like, I don't know, it could actually be it.
Right.
So I'm kind of always on edge. I called my husband home like at least 3 times, being like, I think I'm in labor. You should probably come hang out at home. And it gets hard to like do things, because it's
Yeah.
like, and I kept having this fear that I like, you got to come home and pick up the kids from school or whatever, because like I was scared I was going to go pick up the kids and then have the baby in the driveway. I had this
Yeah.
vision of having a baby in the driveway. So I was like, I was kind of scared to like when things got going
Yeah,
that
to do
maybe it would happen
something.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 39 weeks passes. I have been pregnant longer than I've ever been pregnant, which
Wow.
felt crazy. Who would have thought your fourth pregnancy would be your longest pregnancy? So, anyways, and I wasn't overly big and I was working a lot and really busy. So, I really think this baby just needed more time because I just like
Yeah.
probably hadn't been able to pour as much energy into my womb, because I was
Mm-hmm.
pouring it into my 3 other children. My oldest child was only 7. You
Right.
know, none of my kids are very old. So I had like a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old now, and I was
Mm-hmm.
going to have a baby soon. So another week passes, and then on the day that I went into labor, I like went for a walk in my forest. I had some more like tingly contractions, and I just had like a beautiful walk. It was just me by myself,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt really nice. And I was like, I wonder if the baby's gonna come today. But at this point, I've been like telling people like for like weeks the baby was coming today. So you
Yeah.
start to really not trust yourself when you're like saying
Yeah.
every day, I think the baby is coming today.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, not today. Like every day you wake up, oh, I didn't have a baby again. Anyways, so that night, as per every single night for the last 4 or 5 weeks, I had a few contractions and I was like, okay, well, I'm just like gonna go to bed as per what I did every night, just hoping they would subside and I would go to sleep. It was like 9:30 and my husband came in and it's an ongoing joke that we ask if I'm gonna have the baby tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I laughed and I said, well, I don't know, the baby might come tonight. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell asleep. And it was probably like, very close to 10 at this point, and I fell asleep. And then I woke up at 10,
Mm-hmm.
thinking I had slept for a long time, but it'd been like 2 seconds to water trickling down my leg, and my water had broke. And so I'm
Ah.
like texting my husband because my other children are asleep. Get me a towel, get me a towel. Because I knew if I stood up,
Yeah.
it would just like gush everywhere. And so he finally like gets the message, like I hear him come running across the house with towels. He's like, "Is the baby coming?" Which is also an ongoing joke because we know when the water breaks that it's probably going to be tomorrow morning. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking in my head.
Yeah.
And so I like was like, "Yeah, I don't know, maybe. I don't know." Like, give him a normal non-answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like grabbed the towel and like just like put it like between my legs and like I got up and I didn't have another contraction. So I was like, "Well, you know what? I'll just set up the birth space
Mm-hmm.
and then everything is done and I can just like go back to bed," was my plan.
Yeah.
And it was only 10 o'clock. My husband's a night owl. He was like making himself snacks in the kitchen and he was kind of like lounging around. And I was like, well, you should get to bed
Mm-hmm.
because like we might be up all night. So like go to bed. Please like finish what you're doing and clean
Mm-hmm.
up and get out of here. Bye. Like,
Yeah.
save your energy for later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need you right now. And so he's like kind of fiddling around, taking his time. And in that time, my daughter wakes up and is like crying for him to come cuddle her to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So he like finishes what he's doing and he goes and like sleeps with her. And it's like 10:30. I've maybe had like 1 or 2 contractions in that time, but like
Yeah.
nothing to get excited about. And so I'm just like in the living room, like trying to decide like what I'm gonna do. Like, do I want to go to bed? Like, and I get another contraction. I'm like, whoa, that was like kind of a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but like still pretty far apart. So like another 15 minutes passes maybe. I get like another one or two, and I'm like, whoa, like this is really intense. Then it gets
Mm-hmm.
like really intense, and my husband and our deal is always like, take your phone and I'll call you, because I don't want to wake up the whole house like yelling
Right.
for you. Just
Right.
take your phone and I'll call you when I need you, and you can just come back. Well, he had forgot or whatever, and so and he couldn't hear me, and so I had to like the contractions just suddenly got like so intense, and so I had to like kind of like in between contractions like brace myself and then like
Mm-hmm.
run across the house and then be like, babe, like I need you. And like
Oh.
he knew I was in labor, so like jumped up really fast. And then
Yeah.
like another contraction came and I like had to like lay on the ground through it. And then I had to like get up and like get to the other side of the house. And we were just like, and then like another one came and it was like so intense. And then I was
Mm.
like telling my husband to do lots of random things because like it was so intense. And like for me in my mind, I'm still like thinking I have like a ton of time, but I'm like kind of
Mm-hmm.
losing control.
Okay. Yeah.
And like not that you have control in birth, but like I'm losing my mental stability.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, get me something to drink. And like, okay, can you like rub my back? I'm like, no, no, I don't want that. Like, like
Aw.
this isn't very many contractions later. Like we're probably talking like 11 o'clock, just after 11. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of spiraling. And then like all of a sudden, like the contractions are like so intense. And I'm like shaking, like sitting on, I had like a little mattress set up beside our wood stove. And yeah, I like couldn't like function, and I was just like, yeah, fully in it. And I was like, go get the kids. And so he like surprisingly got up really quickly and like
Mm-hmm.
left to go get the kids. And I had like a moment of quietude, and the next contraction
Mm-hmm.
was a pushing contraction. And that moment of quietude gave me the moment to like catch my breath and like quiet my mind, like quiet my spirit, like
Mm-hmm.
sink into trusting and surrendering the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got even more it made it easier for me to surrender because the next contraction was a pushing contraction, which was like the light bulb went off. I was in transition 2 seconds ago. I went from like
Mm.
no contractions to instantly being in transition.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt completely like my body was exploding. Like
Yeah.
normally it builds up to that point, right? So you're like building up, building up, building up, but I was just like instantly like that. So I was just like, what is happening? What is going on? And then I
Mm.
started pushing and I was like, oh, like the baby's coming. The baby is coming like right now. This second, the
Mm-hmm.
baby is coming. My husband walks in. My housemate comes upstairs. He had like grabbed her because she was coming to help with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids walk in and the head comes out. Like my housemate made it into the living room and the head was already born. My kids
Wow.
were in the living room already, but like they basically got in, like sat down and the head was born. And then like the next contraction came and the body was out and we were just like I was just like picking up my baby and just being like, "What? Like what just
Oh.
happened? What? It's
Wow.
over?" And like she was born at 11:30. Like it felt like I was in labor for 5 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
It was this the craziest thing, and like me and the kids are like sitting, and my older boy wanted to try again to catch the baby.
Oh.
Like that didn't happen. And my little girl, she wanted to tell us if it was a boy or a girl. So I'm like holding her, and I'm
Okay.
like, "What is it? Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Is it a boy?"
Yeah.
And she's just so shocked by the whole experience because it happened so fast. She's just like sitting there, like eyes wide. And my son jumps in. It's a girl. It's a girl. And we're
Oh.
like, yeah, so it's a girl. We were so excited because we had like a boy, girl, boy, and so
Mm-hmm.
my daughter wanted a sister, and so that was
Yeah.
exciting. And like I said,
Aw.
I knew it was a girl, but it was nice to have the confirmation that it was a girl. And
Mm-hmm.
we all just sat there basking in this like shock that this baby was here. Like we couldn't really. It's a
Mm-hmm.
different experience when you have a precipitous birth like that because those longer bursts are nice because you like sink into the ether, into your creator, into this other realm of being. But when
Mm-hmm.
you have a precipitous birth, there's no time for that.
Yeah,
Like
it's all
you
just
just
hot and
full
heavy.
yeah, it's just hot and heavy, like you're just a mammal having a baby,
Yeah.
and then you are holding your baby. And like I
Yeah.
still felt like the glow and the excitement of the baby, of course, but it was just like I felt like a little bit sad. I was like, it's over already. Like I like
Mm.
birth. Birth is a magical, ecstatic, orgasmic experience.
Okay.
And this one was not. There was no time for that. It was just like,
Yeah,
hi, baby.
I'm here. She told you she was coming out quick.
She told me, and it was funny because it almost happened exactly as my vision, the second one, except for
Okay.
my husband wasn't holding the phone. I was holding the phone because I had been holding my phone, trying to kind of set it up, and then I was just having a baby, and I just put it down. And my husband
Okay.
walked in and I was like, the baby's coming. And then the baby came. So that was just such a
Wow.
magical experience. And
Hmm.
then, yeah. And then my labor pains after were wildly intense.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
I ended up birthing the placenta fairly quick after like probably half an hour just to
Hmm.
try and help settle those contractions a bit because they were so painful.
Okay.
So we just like cuddled with the baby for a bit and then I went and had a shower. I went and birthed the placenta on the toilet and then I
Okay.
just like it was the middle of the night and so I
Yeah.
just was like I'm just gonna have a quick shower, like put on like, my birth diaper
Hmm.
and went and like cuddled in bed. I sent the kids back to bed. My
Yeah.
husband went back to bed with the kids. And I just stayed up all night cuddling with the baby, which was kind of
Oh.
beautiful. Like just me and the baby, we kind of dozed and just like laid together. Like obviously I wasn't going to really sleep. I wasn't tired out from a 12-hour labor.
Hmm.
And I was too excited that my baby was there. So it was just her and I just
Mm.
relaxing in bed all night.
Oh, I love that. That's so
Super sweet.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And then we all got up the next morning and had breakfast and
Wow.
life went on with 4.
Wow. And what did you
Yeah.
do with her placenta? Did you do um a burning ceremony or did you just cut
We
it
did it.
and
You know what? We just were like, because it was the middle of the night and the kids
Mm.
were there, we were just like, let's just get everybody tucked in and go to bed. The
Mm.
burning of the cord can take quite a long time if it's super fresh.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't want to muck around with it. So we just tied it up, cut it,
Okay. Yeah.
and yeah, I just have like some wool that I tied
Mm-hmm.
it up with.
Mm.
And yeah, we just like cuddled in bed and the
Oh,
placenta's in the freezer.
okay. Just waiting for
My
when you're
husband's
ready.
waiting for me to deal with it. And I'm sure there'll be a day that I will wake up and be like, and today I will deal with my placenta.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will probably do that. In the meantime, I took a midwifery birthkeeper course with someone in the States,
Okay.
Wapio,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
she talks about placental readings, which like you take your placenta and you like read the
Mm-hmm.
story that it has to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that now, which is it's
Oh,
so magical. It's like not what
yeah.
you think. I'm like, oh, I just like let it speak for what it is. And
Yeah.
so I did one on Eve's placenta
Mm-hmm.
a few days after she was born, but I'm
Yeah.
excited to pull it out again and
And
see if it
see.
has more stories to share before I send her back to the earth.
Wow.
So, but there has to be the right day. I don't know. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
thinking 9 months after, like 9 months in, 9 months after, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. We'll just see.
Mm-hmm.
The
Oh my
day just
goodness.
calls you and you just do it.
Yeah, and you just feel it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you for your children, how was your breastfeeding journeys with each of those babes? Was
Oh,
they just smooth sailing or was there some bits of
no.
trouble or
Um, Smooth sailing the first time, no problems, other than just like, some of the discomforts that you have at the first couple of weeks,
hmm
just, nothing intense. Just I think most moms experience some discomfort, you
yeah.
know. And then my second actually had some pretty significant ties.
Okay.
So she had 4 ties released and
Wow.
yeah, she wasn't gaining weight. And I
Yeah.
knew something was up because I was a very successful breastfeeding mom the first time around.
hmm
And I knew what I was doing. And I was like,
Yeah.
why isn't this working?
Mm.
And the midwives, unfortunately, weren't actually overly helpful. And then I went to like a public health nurse who was even worse and left me even
Mm.
more kind of like traumatized, basically.
Oh.
And then I just did my own digging and I found a dentist, surgeon, I forget what they're called, that do that. And he's like a
Okay.
specialist.
Yeah.
Anyways, but he was 3 hours away.
Mm.
So I had to travel 3 hours to go get it done. But he
hmm
was actually quite wonderful. He's a specialist in releasing ties.
Yeah.
And the whole process, he was so wonderful. He's like, breastfeed your baby, then we'll like take the baby off, we'll do it, and then immediately put the baby back on your breast. And his like nurses were like all right there supporting, making sure the baby was like skin to skin the whole time.
Aw.
And yeah, he was really great. And he like checked in on us like over the phone a couple times after,
Right.
making sure that we were doing okay.
Oh, that's really
And
nice.
it like it helped immediately.
Okay.
Like it was like the next day she could nurse it perfectly.
Wow.
it was like, it was tough and it was hard, but I don't regret it at all. Even knowing what I know now today, I think I still would have done it because they were so significant.
Okay. Yeah.
That I don't think like any kind of like body work or cranial, say like I took her to like a sacrocranial person, and like we weren't having any success
Yeah.
changing or improving her feeding journey.
Right.
And she was not a huge baby when she was born. She was 6'11", and she just like, after like, I think 6-8 weeks, she was only like 8 or 9 pounds. Like she really hadn't
Okay.
gained barely any weight.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And as soon as she was always a petite little lady, but she started, growing, and she was good after that. We didn't have any problems. So I was really glad I did that. And then my
Yeah.
third, no problems. He was just a chunker. He always ate good. He had a bit of tightness in his cheeks, but I had
Okay.
learned how to like loosen and release
Okay.
some of
Yeah.
that tension because of my second. So I
Yeah.
just did a little bit of that with him, and then he was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually my fourth, I had quite a lot of stress happening in my life when she was born.
Okay.
And my husband ended up getting really sick, like flu sick,
Mm.
that first week. And so I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the fact that my husband wasn't really able to help. And I only had him for 1 week postpartum.
Okay.
And so I don't live near family, and I don't have a whole lot of extra help out here. And so I was feeling pretty devastated that my only week that I had help, I didn't. And my
Yeah.
other kids ended up being sick. And so I was kind of alone. And my when she was born, she was born so fast. I believe some of her fluids didn't exit. And so for the
Okay.
first couple days, she was really upset and fussy and coughing, and it was really hard. I was like kind of, keeping her really close and keeping a really close eye on her, but I didn't sleep for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And so I was kind of a disaster because I
Okay.
was so
Yeah.
tired. It's just kind of like if you were in labor for 3 days.
Yeah.
So I'd been up with her for 3 days after she was born, and I was really falling apart. And then my husband
Mm.
got sick, and my milk wasn't coming in. And I got like, milk doesn't come in, like it's not like just like a switch and it changes. But I got kind of into this kind of limbo land where like a lot of people talk about like the 3 to 5 day dip where you like your
Mm.
hormones drop and you like feel emotional. I kind of got stuck in this, like in
Okay.
that phase. And my milk wasn't fully coming in. It was just kind of half in,
Okay.
and I felt stuck, and my emotions felt terrible. I felt emotionally terrible. I
Mm.
was so tired. And I was like, yeah, I just felt like kind of like that, like panicky, yeah, not good.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully I have like everything on hand for, your milk to come in. So I had like some blessed thistle and
Okay.
fenugreek, and I was like, I know I need to rest, and I just like
Yeah.
stayed in bed, and I just like started drinking tea like crazy, and I had even some like capsule forms of blessed thistle I started taking, and
Okay.
within a day and a half it started to really come in again, and then I
Okay.
came out of that. But that was about, because by day 5 was
Mm-hmm.
when it got really bad. Um, and then, yeah, by day 7 or so, I had moved out of that,
Okay. Yeah.
and I was
Wow.
feeling better. But it was like this weird, it's a very weird like feeling of like, if you felt the drop that you feel at the day 3 to 5 when you're, for lack of better terms, milk comes in,
Mm-hmm.
it felt like I was stuck in that stage and I couldn't get out of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
it felt really yucky and terrible. And so, yeah, I just went crazy with the herbs and rested. And
Mm-hmm.
my mom ended up coming that weekend,
Okay.
and that helped.
Mm-hmm.
She like did all the things that I needed around the house and stuff. And so she helped me that weekend. And then I was able to, my mom's like, I knew something was wrong with you,
Aw.
but I like couldn't even speak to what was going on really. I just,
Right. You
was
just
just head
knew
down
there's
trying
a
to deal with it. Yeah.
yeah, and that's tough as well. Like
That was
when
tough.
your partner
Hmm.
gets sick and then all the kids are sick and then it's like this new baby. That's a lot of energy to try and navigate by yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And like all my kids
wow.
are little, so it's not like they're self-sufficient, right? Like I still have to feed my kids, and my
Mm-hmm.
2-year-old isn't potty trained, and like, kids still
Mm-hmm.
need help going to bed and getting dressed and like all the main things. So it was,
Yeah.
It was a lot. And then we just like had a little bit of other stress. My husband was working a ton, and actually my milk almost dried up a couple times in this postpartum. So a few times
Oh,
I've had to reintroduce all those herbs again, like get
okay.
myself to rest, like get myself to take care of myself a little bit better
Mm-hmm.
to bring it all back. It's just so easy when you are a mom with many little hands to
Mm-hmm.
take the rest
Yeah.
that is so lovely to have, but I just haven't really been able to have it this postpartum because I have other kids and I'm
Yeah.
solo parenting most of the time. It's just not really my reality. And then
Mm-hmm.
we just had a kind of a bad winter with illnesses. So like kids weren't going to school, and like my 2-year-old, I have daycare from when I was working that he could go to, but he can't go to daycare if he's sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he
Totally.
wasn't going. So like everyone's home all the time, but I really just need everybody not home because
Yeah.
like that's the only way I can like catch up on some rest and like,
Yeah.
do
Do
the
your own
things.
thing.
Yeah. And like my
Wow.
son, funny enough, he like, well, it wasn't funny at the time, but now I can laugh about it. Like when Eve was like 2 weeks old, he like went to daycare and fell really hard and like almost bit through his entire tongue.
Oh no.
So then I
I
had to like go 2 weeks postpartum, like to pick him up from daycare. And then I didn't know tongues heal really easily. So I like went to the hospital because I'm like, my kid's tongue looks like it's almost gonna fall off.
yeah.
And they're like, no, no, you just have to let it heal. But then like he was like screaming for days because
Oh
like his
gosh,
tongue was
yeah.
so bad. And so I'm like
Yeah.
dealing with him screaming and like and then my brand new baby and
Oh goodness.
it was just like a wild, wild ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm
sounds like
thankful for
it.
my third because we had like this really peaceful time being pregnant, and like my postpartum felt like way more
Mm-hmm.
relaxed.
Okay,
It
yeah.
wasn't so chaotic.
Yeah.
This one, you sometimes you plan for all the things. Like I did plan for support, I did plan for things, but then they just didn't work out.
Okay, yeah.
Um, so sometimes you just do the best you can to be
Mm-hmm.
supported, and it just doesn't really work out that way. And that
Mm-hmm.
was just our journey this time around. And to be honest, in a lot of ways, that journey enlightened what I need to do for my family and the things that
Okay.
we want to do moving forward now that we're a family of four. And
Mm-hmm.
it's become very clear where I want to take our journey now. And
Yeah.
so maybe it had to happen because I had to be pushed in that way to
Totally.
find
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, yeah, to really
So
be clear on what it is that you need to do. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, now we
Wow.
are 6 months postpartum, and I'm feeling honestly just only in the last little bit that like I'm like getting out of like the thick of it and like
Okay.
doing the thing now only at like 6 months. So it
Wow.
took a while. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. I mean, wow, those are some incredible stories, Lana, and especially this last birth. I loved how connected to that baby through vision you were. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just seems like she's really connecting to you and just giving you all of the things that you need in in your life and how to take care of yourself, how to take care of your family. And I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, she's definitely been giving me a lot of lessons. She's also was quite a fussy baby.
Okay. And sorry, how many weeks then? Because she was your longest gestation. So was she born at 41 weeks?
She was born at 40, like 39 weeks or like 40 weeks minus a day.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. But
Wow.
my longest gestation, which is hilarious because like I'm always telling moms like be prepared for 41 weeks, like at least 41, and I'm like
Yeah.
complaining when I'm like 38 weeks, like oh my God, I can't do it any longer. But I have so much empathy for everyone, no matter what the journey is. But
Yeah.
it's just
Wow.
funny because I've actually never been pregnant that long.
Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
babies are all like good sizes. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're all between like close to 7 pounds. And my third baby, that's my big boy, he was like almost 9 pounds, but they were all good
Okay.
weights. So it didn't really
Yeah.
matter when they were born. They just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And babies know, like, they just know when
Mhm.
they're ready to come out. And like you
Yeah.
said, you didn't have very much time to connect with your last baby. So maybe she just wanted that little bit of extra time to stay in the womb. And so she just stayed until almost 40 weeks because that's what she
Yeah.
needed, like
Yes.
we
And
don't,
I wouldn't have had any time just being pregnant with her if she would have came right away when I was like working. Like
yeah,
I could have been working and then just like had her right away, like within a day or two. So
yeah,
it was like nice to have those extra weeks
yeah,
just to
totally.
be, and I was tired, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was nice to have those extra weeks just to like kind of settle into her
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if she was
totally.
coming. So yeah, she's definitely pushed me. Every time you have a baby, you like level up. You
Okay.
your skills become better, and you manage more,
Mm-hmm.
and you can do more, and it amazes you. The like curse of a mom is like that we do to each other is that when we have one, we think it's hard, and it is, and
Mm-hmm.
your experience with your one child is hard. But when you have more children, you look back and you laugh because you're like, what? When I have
Mm,
one, I'm on vacation. How is one
right.
hard? But it's
Yeah.
just because you're like your skills and your understanding and your everything about your life has shifted every time, and so it just like gives
Mm-hmm.
you, and it's actually kind of a beautiful thing. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think we're like hard on each other, or we forget, as women coming together, like how that journey unfolds for ourselves
Yeah,
separately.
totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Lana, for your beautiful words and your beautiful stories. I'm really grateful that I got to, excuse me, hold the space for them and to hear everything that you've shared
I
today.
always love talking about birth. And who doesn't like talking about their birth, especially if it's like positive?
Yeah, and I love hearing
When
about
when you
birth.
have a positive experience, it just feels so good to share it and like put it out to the
Yeah,
ether so like women can be, their paths can be altered. Like it was only
exactly.
a few stories that changed my path, and they
Hmm.
changed them dramatically in so many ways. So
Exactly. It's just that energetic resonance that comes through that just hearing these stories, yeah, they can make such a big difference. Even if it's only one woman's life, like that's more than enough.
it's more than enough. Like I only heard one story when I was pregnant with my first, and it was a woman that I didn't really know who
Mm,
told me how she had two kids at home, and it was beautiful and it
mm,
was great. And it was the only
hmm.
time I'd ever heard that, and I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah,
yes."
yeah.
hmm
That's
And it
it.
stuck
That's what
with
I'm
me. It's
doing.
and it's and it stuck with me forever, and it changed my
Yeah,
entire life path. Just that one person.
yeah,
So I just really believe in
yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much. You're definitely going to change somebody's, at least one woman's path and her
Yeah.
way of thinking. Um, is there anything else that you would like to say to any one of your birth stories or all of them, or do you feel complete in those shares?
I feel complete.
Yeah.
I think,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you for hearing my stories.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing them and putting them in this beautiful collective because this is what I want. I want to hear these stories. I want other people to hear these stories. I want them to live on forever. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm really grateful that you were able to give this to me and that I could give this to you. And one last question for you is if anyone would like to reach out to you, how would they get in contact?
Oh, yes. Well, if you are on Instagram, that
Mm.
weird place, you can find me. It's just lana.songbird. And you can email me. My email is rooted.abundance.lana@protonmail.com.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful evening, Lana.
thank you.
Thank you so much, women, for listening to this latest episode of the Freebirthing in Color movement. If you want to continue supporting this movement and all that comes with it, please give a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Like the videos on YouTube and share this episode with some of your friends. As reciprocity for the work that I'm doing and the content that I'm creating, it only takes 2 minutes to show your support through a 5-star rating, a small written review, and a share. If you want to give a monetary donation to help with the back-end costs of keeping everything that is happening within this movement going, you can send your donations through PayPal via the link in the show notes. And again, as reciprocity for the work that I'm doing and creating, I'm so grateful when those donations come through. I have many other avenues of work that I've created, such as Portals of Wisdom, which are educational guidebooks for women to reclaim and remember their personal bodily sovereignty. I have one-to-one activation sessions and one-to-one or group mentorship opportunities, as well as an amazing course called Cyclical Woman that is a deep dive into the natural cycles of Mother Earth and connecting into your internal rhythms in relation to where Mother Earth is at any given moment. And lastly, I want to mention again the Free Birthing in Color community. It is open for enrollment, so please, if you want to create a deeper sense of connection to myself and other women navigating the same phase of life that you're in, please, please, please come and join us and let's create something truly beautiful in there. All information can be found within the show notes below, or you can go to primalwomanportal.com and you'll find everything that you need. I'll see you in the next episode.